What's up guys, welcome back to the channel and another video.
In today's video we are gonna... Nope, lost it.
What's up guys, welcome back to the channel and another video.
In this video we want to give you some tips and tricks to get the best out of your Fuji XT30 when it comes to filmmaking.
Just before we get into this one, we would just like to thank you guys who have subscribed to the channel here. We are still a real small channel, but we appreciate all the support. Hopefully the videos are helpful. We will continue to create lots more and hopefully you enjoy those too. So thanks, we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So just before Christmas, we picked up our Fuji XT30 and we've been using it ever since to make the videos that you've seen here on the channel, as well as our X10, but a lot of it is shot on our Fuji. And we've picked up a few things along the way, especially when recording our photo vlogs, that have just helped us get the look that we want in our videos and kind of makes the whole process a little bit easier.
So we're gonna share some tips with you that we wish we had have known when we first got the Fuji.
So these first few tips fall under the focusing category. So if you've watched any of our photo vlogs here on the channel, or pretty much any of our videos, you'll notice that we do include a lot of shots like this, which are pretty much still shots, which we sometimes do in the tripod and sometimes handheld, but the same thing applies. And when we're doing these shots, what we don't want is the camera to be struggling with focusing maybe on a tree in the foreground and then changing to the background. We want it to stay, so you kind of have that cinematic kind of feel to it, and the focus locks onto whatever we want it to lock onto. And instead of relying on the camera to do this, what we do is we flick into manual focus, and normally by doing that you would have to use your little manual focus ring to try and get whatever it is you want in focus, and a little bit of focus peaking can help with this. But with the Fuji and possibly some other cameras too, when you're in manual focus you can actually use the focus point as well, so it can lock focus. The only difference is when you're in manual focus, after you lock focus it won't change, so you don't need to worry about the focus drifting to something else like in the foreground. It will stay on whatever it was that the focus point locked onto, if that makes sense. That was a lot. I don't know how to sum that up.
Okay, so let's try and sum that up in just a few sentences. So basically, instead of trying to manually focus and lock on to whatever it is you're trying to focus on, you can use your point focus to find the specific point, the specific thing you want to focus on, press the button, it will lock on. Once you hit record, it will not move. So this little tip has really helped us with our recent videos. It saves us so much time trying to manually focus on different things. And if you don't do this and you just film in continuous focus, you run the risk of something like this happening. And if you look closely at that clip, you will see it kind of adjusting, not really knowing where to focus. It focuses on the boat, then it focuses on the water because lots of things are moving in that clip. So yeah, you do not want that to happen in your footage.
You definitely don't. It's one of the most annoying things when it comes to editing. So sticking with that point, the button that we actually use to focus is not just the shutter button at the top, because on the Fuji that is actually used to press record, and we don't want to risk recording by accident when we're trying to focus and then having to just end up with a load of different clips. So the button that we use, and a lot of other Fuji users have done this as well, is you set the AFL button on the camera to be your autofocus. So whenever you hold this button, that allows the camera to autofocus, and when you release your finger, then it stops. So whatever it's focused on, it won't refocus again unless you hold the button down, which just makes things a little bit easier to use, I feel. The main reason we done this was mainly for photos, because we don't want to focus every time we go to press our shutter button, the camera refocuses, but it actually also works pretty well for videos.
So the next one is quite a simple one, but it is something that you might actually forget about. It's a really good tip if you are videoing people, especially faces, and it's to not forget to turn on the eye autofocus. Basically, if your camera sees an eye, it will focus on that eye and will focus on the person's face.
If you forget to turn it on, your camera probably will do a decent job of just tracking somebody's face anyway, but with the eye autofocus it just helps to make sure that it stays on their face.
On the face! iOS.
OIS.
OIS.
Optical Image Stabilization. Okay, so this tip. This next tip is a little bit more specific. If you're someone who uses your tripod a lot for shots, like we do in our photo vlogs where we'll take a lot of still shots of just the scenes that we're in, you do want to make sure that you have your... I did not know what I was going to say there. You're going to want to make sure that if your lens has stabilization, that you turn it off when it's on the tripod. We only figured that out kind of recently, and we did have a few shots where the camera, or the lens more so, is trying to stabilize a shot that actually isn't really moving, or if the camera's moving like very slightly in the wind, it overcompensates and kind of messes up your whole clip. It looks like all wobbly and warped looking, quite strange. So yeah, just keep that in mind. If you have got the XT30 and you buy a stabilized lens like the 18-55, which has OIS, the little thing on the side, if you have it on a tripod and you're doing video, turn it off.
So the next tip is all about white balance. So first of all, when you are out recording your video, you want to make sure that you pick a white balance that kind of fits the scene and you set it to that so that it doesn't changing from different color balances throughout your video.
It's the worst.
It is the worst. So we like to choose one of the preset options, one that kind of suits the environment. Maybe it's a sunny day or a cloudy day, depending on what it looks like. Set it to one of those, and that way it will stay in that white balance preset for the entire recording session. And of course you do want to see the white balance that you are setting your camera to.
It would help, wouldn't it?
So this is a silly little issue that we had when we first got our Fuji XT30. The Fuji comes pre-programmed with the setting of live view on. And we didn't realize that this was affecting our view of the white balance. So every time we wanted to pick a white balance, we couldn't see anything changing. It was just the same screen all the time, and we couldn't figure out, why can I not see what's going on? Turns out there's a setting that you need to change. You need to turn the live view off. So you actually have to go into your settings menu and your screen settings for this one, and you'll notice that there are two settings very close together. One of them says, I actually have to find out what it says, preview, exposure, and white balance. So we had this turned on thinking that that would show us the white balance that we were choosing. But it didn't. Turns out if the natural live view is switched on, it overrides this setting, and so you just continuously see the same thing. So you may have to make sure, I'm getting so excited and flustered in my words.
Yeah, so pretty much make sure that those are set to preview, exposure, white balance, and natural live view is off. Because this took us a while to figure out in a few searching through little forums and stuff, which seems kind of silly, but it's the way they have it is a little bit complicated. So if you want to see your white balance before you actually hit record, follow what we just said.
Fun.
So I don't really know if this next one's a tip. I suppose it kind of is, but it's simply just use the film simulations that Fuji has added to these cameras, because they really do create looks that you're probably unlikely to be able to recreate in editing unless you're a really good color grader, which I am not. You can flick through the different film simulations, see what it is you like in the environment that you're in, set it, and it just gives you a pretty cool look based on like old film stocks, which I think is pretty cool because it saves a lot of time in post. The one we currently use is Astia Soft, I believe, which gets the colors that we like. The blues are a little strong in it, and we kind of bring those back a little bit in editing, but it does just make the colors in our shots look a lot richer looking, and I don't think I would be able to replicate those looks in color grading myself. So yeah, just flick through them, see which one you like. There is a lot of options. Eterna film simulation is very popular. It has that kind of more faded film look, but yeah, use them because they are very beneficial and save a lot of time in post.
Is good.
Along with the film simulations, there are more specific settings which you can set just to your own preference. At the minute, we actually have set both highlights and shadows, and we've set the highlights to -2 and the shadows to -2, which just flattens the clip a little bit more and just make sure that you're not completely crushing your shadows. and it's unlikely that you're going to really overexpose the brightest parts of your image. It just kind of helps get a flatter look a little bit so you have a bit more room when color grading. There is also noise reduction and sharpness, which you can adjust to your liking. If you're shooting in real low light scenarios, then you might want to adjust the noise reduction a little bit so it applies it in camera, because sometimes the editing software either won't have it or it won't do as good of a job. Sharpness is another one which we actually have set to -2, just to get rid of a little bit of that digital sharp look, and I think it helps a little bit. So yeah, feel free to play around with those a little bit, and you can kind of create your own kind of look in camera.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of useful.
Kind of useful. Very useful. So the last tip that we use that helps our video process, makes it a little bit easier, is turning on the zebra settings.
Or zebras, depending on where you're from.
Yeah.
Zebras. Zebra.
So we set ours to 100, and this helps us make sure that we aren't overexposing anything important like skies or skin tones. And it just generally makes the whole process a lot quicker, because we can see straight away if anything is overexposed, especially if you're like changing scenes and looking at one thing and then turning around and looking at something else. The zebras will really help you. Hey, I said zebras.
Zebras.
The zebras will really help you with your exposure. Whether you choose zebra right or zebra left, that is entirely up to you.
That does not make a difference. I think that's pretty much it. If we have missed something, we'll maybe mention it, or we'll do another one of these videos if we figure out more stuff that we're actually using continuously. But we used all those things that we mentioned literally in every video we make, and it speeds up the whole process and just allows us to get it a bit more accurate. Most of the time. Sometimes we forget, and
sometimes
those shots either have to be used or disregarded, depending on how many ones we've got right. But yeah, they really do help. So if you've been using your camera for a while, maybe some of those you didn't know, and if you've just got yourself a Fuji XT30 or another new camera, look out for those settings on it and maybe use them to help with your own work.
So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. That would be very nice. It would also be very nice if you could subscribe too. That would really help us here as a new YouTube channel. Is that it?
I believe so. As we always say, take it easy.
Don't be a stranger.